Welcome to Kiss the Reviews. I'm Armando, that's Corey, and today we're doing 1990s Crybaby. But before we get started, if you want to reach out to me or Corey on Twitter, you can reach out to me at Junior D's. You can reach out to Corey at Corey_idol. And as always, if you want to follow the show, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Kiss the Reviews. Let's get into the long list of cast members of 1990s Crybaby. This film stars Johnny Depp as Crybaby Walker, Ricki Lake as Pepper Walker, Amy Locane as Allison Vernon-Williams, Susan Tyrrell as Ramona Rickettes, Iggy Pop as Belvedere Rickettes, Tracy Lords as Wanda Woodward, and Polly Bergen as Mrs. Vernon-Williams.
Dude, Tracy Lords, from start to finish, was a fucking smoke show.
Hell yes.
I'll say this about Tracy Lords. I have the utmost respect for that woman.
Mm-hmm.
She is a very, very intelligent woman. And if you don't know the Tracy Lords story, I don't know if there's a documentary on it or something, but find an article about it, just Google it and pull that up. It's incredibly interesting.
Yeah. It's got some peaks and valleys.
It definitely has some peaks and valleys. Oh, but yeah, so it was I totally forgot she was in this. But as I've gone along, I was always a Johnny Depp fan. I know everybody's like, yay, Team Johnny, and don't poop in my bed and whatever, like in 2023. But even back then, I've always just been a huge Johnny Depp fan. I think he's a fantastic actor. And this just goes to show his range.
Yes. Yes, it does. I agree with you. He is a fantastic actor. However, I am a bigger fan of his wine and cocaine addictions. I think those are fantastic.
I think those are fantastic as well.
You were right.
But let's get into the movie 1990s Crybaby. So this movie is basically, it's based in 1950s Baltimore. And they're, I guess in high school. But well, they're in high school. And this is just taking a piss. And you and I talked about it beforehand. This is just kind of taking a piss on, movies like The Outsiders and that kind of thing. And it's silly. It's campy.
Oh, yeah.
But it opens in Baltimore, 1954, where outside of the school, Allison introduces herself to Crybaby and his crew of hoods, and her grandmother comes by to pick her up and clutch her pearls and say words like ghastly and I would never. And she tells Crybaby to stay away from her granddaughter, and they drive away, and she drives her to the charm school for the talent show that they're having there.
Yeah, and I have to say, her arc being Miss Williams is quite interesting because
incredibly interesting.
She detests the drapes.
Yes.
They are the dregs of society.
Yep.
And she gets rear-ended by Crybaby and his crew in what is, I guess, be classified as attempted vehicular manslaughter. And about 5 minutes later, Johnny Depp shows up and he's like, I got a motorcycle. Get on my bike, bitch. And she's like, I guess, go have fun, right?
Yeah, she turns
and then she's banging out judges, and she's in an interracial jailhouse relationship midway through this. Like, her arc is fascinating.
No, her arc is definitely fascinating. If there's one thing that I was like, because I've shared some of my thoughts with you before we started recording, but there was one thing that I really liked. I actually liked her arc because it was super interesting.
Yeah. Everybody else arc-wise is very square, and she has the drapiest of drape arcs that has ever happened.
Yes. So we then cut to Turkey Point Swimming Club. Crybaby and his crew hang out there. They go to Crybaby and Pepper's grandmother's place where she and his uncle give him a motorcycle. And he then takes the motorcycle to said charm school talent show, grabs Allison, takes her to the jukebox jamboree at Turkey Point so that she can watch him sing his great Elvis impersonation.
And I'm a little bit offended that you just glossed over my first major starring role as one of the Square's best friends.
I did notice. I didn't know if you wanted me to bring it up or not, but
yeah, I am thirsty.
The awkwardness of it all. You really brought it that day.
I mean, I still got it. Hollywood.
At the jamboree, Crybaby and his crew perform, and Allison joins them on stage after she gets a makeover from the Crybaby girls. And afterwards, Allison and Crybaby find a spot in a field. They make out. He confesses his love for her, and they both reveal they're orphans and their parents are dead. And Crybaby tells her that his father was the alphabet bomber, and he and his mother both died in the electric chair.
This was the funniest part of the movie for me, when he's naming all the places that his father would scream out in his sleep.
Yes.
I was rolling.
I did like this whole scene was really funny. And again, we get into like some of the weirdness of it when they start getting into like the French kissing, and then you got it's cutaways to all the people just, I don't know, tonguing each other's tongues. And this scene was funny. There were some scenes where I laughed, I giggled, you know, that kind of thing. And I told you before we recorded, like, I'm not a huge musical guy. There are a couple that I like. Musical movies. Like, if I'm going to go see a musical, it's going to be in a theater kind of setting.
But
these musical movies are almost a little too campy when it gets to the songs, but like, not comparing this to Grease whatsoever, but in movies like Grease, you know, we get to the songs are well written, they're well structured. I didn't like the songs here, or the song choices, I guess. That was the one thing I didn't enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't bother me, but at the same time, I never once considered buying the Crybaby soundtrack.
It's good. It's a fair point. That's a fair point. But like, when the songs were going on, I found myself like doing one of these, like, this one over yet kind of thing. But I can appreciate some of the rockabilly songs because the actual music was good, as opposed to, I really didn't listen to the lyrics. I thought the music was really good with a good rockabilly guitar. Yeah. That being said, though, 50s fucking 50s
Mr. Sandman. Oh my God.
Yeah. That genre. And you know what? And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's that genre of music that just turned me off. You know what I mean? And it might have just turned me off to the red. It didn't matter what the hell they were singing. I was just like, Christ, with Mr. Sam, I'm going to hit somebody in the head with a bat.
Yeah, for the most part, too, like, as far as a musical goes, there really hasn't been many musical interludes outside of, like, staged performances up until now. A little later, they start really getting into the whole musical of it all. Yeah. But up until this point, it's just kind of a campy movie, and everybody, it's like the Squares sing and the Drapes sing this kind of music, and we're clashing on that too. Yeah. Which, whatever.
No, I hear you. But
I mean, in all honesty, though, if you're a guy and you're like, I'm going to play Mr. Sandman to romance my lady friend, you should strongly consider becoming an incel, because you're a cunt.
You were correct.
As Crybaby and Allison share their family pasts, Baldwin and the RNC gang vandalize the Drapes' cars. They then light Crybaby's motorcycle on fire. They push it down the hill, and an all-out brawl breaks out between the Squares and the Drapes here.
This is where I can appreciate John Waters' restraint, because if I'm the Drapes, every Drape we've seen so far is armed with a switchblade.
Yes.
So if these Square motherfuckers send a lit motorcycle, like lit on fire motorcycle, screaming into a crowded dance, and then start charging down the mountain with fucking baseball bats, yo, I'm stabbing some white people tonight. I'll tell you that dude, right now.
Dude, somebody's definitely getting stuck when they come down.
Boop, boop, boop. I'm poking 3 times, and I'm moving on to the next one.
Yep. Absolutely. That was the one thing that kind of made me laugh here, was that it was like a brawl, and I get it because of the nature of the movie. This isn't a fucking horror flick or a drama. Like
sure. And they're also really trying to separate how the Squares were the ones that were really the over aggressive.
Yeah.
And the Drapes were just trying to have a hootenanny.
And over aggressive, sure. Putting a flaming pile of poop on somebody's lawn, sure, it's a bit aggressive.
He called the shit poop.
He called the shit poop.
But lighting somebody's motorcycle on fire and pushing it down the hill, that's a bit much. We're going kind of past the, see, I don't like you, and I'm in a doo-wop group, and whatever. Now we're into like felonies. That's what's happening now.
You were right.
Most of the kids on the Square side ended up joining Congress as Republicans by the time that, like, these are your Republican congressmen today.
Yes.
Lighting fucking motorcycles on fire and then like laughing like a hyena later at a press conference for some reason about playing the game chicken. Like, dude, this screamed Matt Gaetz or Florida Republican. Just pick one.
Yes.
Thanks, Armando.
Hey, you're welcome. Lenora here, who's after Crybaby's pee-pee, she lies to Allison, tells her that she's pregnant with Crybaby's kid. Baldwin tells Allison that the Drapes beat him up because he loves her, and the Drapes, including Allison, are all arrested and brought to court.
And Allison really seems to struggle making up her own mind. It's like, bitch, you made a decision. Stick to it at least for 5 minutes. Like, you just got... That guy went out of his way. Did you see... Okay, first off, did you see how big Lenora's titties were? And she just offered him up to fucking Crybaby at the dance.
Yes.
She's like, you want to see these? He just walked in the door. Which, by the way, hi guys, Uncle Corey here. If a girl runs up to you when you first walk in the door and she's not related to you and is like, do you want to see these titties? Your answer is yes.
Every time, yes.
Every time. You don't have to do anything, but to view a work of art, that's not a crime. Get the fuck out of here. That's at least what I told my PO. Crybaby had the opportunity to go with Lenora immediately. He doesn't, goes out of his way to teach this virgin how to French kiss and how to tit grab.
Don't judge.
I am.
That seemed very judgy.
I am. It was disgusting.
Yes, it is.
But no, so he goes out of his way to do all this. And then her ex-boyfriend is like, oh, they beat me up. And she's like, I'm so conflicted. Over what? This is the most unrelatable part of this movie, or unrealistic part of this movie, because experience teaches me when you're the guy who gets his ass kicked and you're going, help me. The woman does not choose you.
Yes. Also very true.
Ever. What happens 5 minutes later is exactly what happens. A guy on a burn-up motorcycle shows up and goes, get on, bitch! And she just goes, fuck you. Fuck you and your black-eyed pussy. I'm getting on the bike.
We get to court here then, right? And Milton, Hatchetface, and Wanda are released to their parents, and Allison to her grandmother. Pepper's kids are put into an orphanage, and Crybaby is sentenced to the Maryland Training School for Boys until his 21st birthday. One, I really like Tracy Lords' parents in this movie. They're fantastic. That was one of the parts of the movie that I loved.
Your Honor, could we take Wanda the fuck home?
And if you don't know, Tracy Lords' parents in this, her mother was played by Patty Hearst.
Yes.
And we talked earlier about Tracy Lords' crazy arc in real life.
Yes.
Check out Patty Hearst if you don't know. That's an arc and a half. I'll tell you what, too. Patty Hearst looked good as fuck in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, she did. Well, and I'll tell you this, too. When they say, like, are sentenced to Maryland Training School for Boys, it's jail. It's just jail.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're sending you to jail.
Back then, that's what they had to say. Nowadays, people just are like, send him to jail! Fucking shoot him! He stole a candy bar! Shoot him in the back!
So, Crybaby gets to jail. He sings his longing for Allison as outside Lenora is writing the I'm carrying Crybaby's baby story to the press, who are all clamoring outside because Crybaby got arrested.
Yeah, it's a big story. And my favorite part of this scene is Johnny Depp is called over to the radio, Crybaby.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Arrgh!" And I'm like, yo, that's exactly how that motherfucker looked when he found doo-doo in his bed. Exactly.
You were right.
So Allison hears Lenora's story on the radio as well, and she goes running to Baldwin. Then Allison tells reporters that she's done with Crybaby, which he hears in jail, and it sends him into some more song and dance, and that lands him in the hole with Dupree, who gives him a teardrop tattoo. And this is the whole, Allison can't make up her mind of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, she hears, oh, my baby, I'm carrying his baby. Cool. And then she hears it on the radio again. And then she immediately goes back to Baldwin, which, by the way, throughout this whole, and I know we mentioned, like, yeah, they're the squares and the RNC of it all and whatever. She also doesn't really like him, because when they're in the car at the beginning and he's like massaging her shoulders and she's just like, dude, the fuck off me.
Yeah.
Like, listen, you want to go to a rando and fall into like a rando's arms, go ahead. But like, this guy you already don't like. He's already kind of slimy. And then you're just like, yeah, cool. I mean, slimy's better than nothing, I guess.
Once again, we have found our Jeffrey Epstein origin story. If he was just allowed to finger blast one time, he would not have this insatiable urge to attack 17-year-old girls the rest of his adult life.
That's fair. That's fair. While Crybaby is in the hole, he then uses the sewer in his little cell to try to escape. And during this, Hatchet and Milton steal a helicopter to break Crybaby out unsuccessfully. And Crybaby eventually takes a wrong turn, and he's led there by a rat, and that leads him straight to the barbershop at the prison. This is the one thing I didn't like, okay? We got into the Caddyshack of it all here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I get it. It's campy, it's fun, it's silly, it's weird, whatever. And then I saw the rat laugh, and I was like, fucking Caddyshack.
You just never tried to escape prison. Because those of us in the know that you never trust the rat when you're trying to escape, bro. Rat's always going to dog you out.
Well, I know. That's why they're rats.
Holy shit, I just put that together.
There you go.
Fuck, man.
There you go. I'm a smart guy.
Tip of the cap to you, sir.
And to you as well. Pepper, Ramona, and Belvedere break all the children out of the orphanage, and they head to the opening of the Enchanted Forest, Maryland's first theme park, where Baldwin, the Whiffles, and Allison are all performing. And this is where they're performing Mr. Sandman.
And if you've been to a theme park recently, they're still fucking there performing Mr. Sandman.
Yes, they are.
It's insane. What are you people thinking? Update your entertainment act.
At least a little bit. You don't have to sing Wet Ass Pussy, but you could like just update it to another more upbeat song.
Like Pony by Genuine.
Exactly. Just stop with the Mr. Sandman of it all. And why? Listen, okay. If we're going to sing Mr. Sandman, it's been done a gajillion times. Even in the 50s, it was already done a million times. Mm-hmm. You don't have to wear sleepers when you're singing the song. You can just sing the song.
You were correct.
I think you should update it. Limp Bizkit style.
Yeah, Mr. Sandman.
Go the fuck to sleep, everybody!
At this performance, Belvedere swoops in as the rabbit, and he grabs Allison. He says that she sung with the squares, and now she needs to sing with the drapes. And Lenora announces that she's now a square, and Mrs. Vernon-Williams tells Allison to pick the man that loves her the most. How about this? How about you just pick the guy that you like the most? Let's just start there.
How about this? You're 17. You don't have to pick anyone yet.
Or nobody.
You got a long life.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it was the 50s, and you guys ate a lot of red fucking meat back then. So you got about 20 years till your first cardiac arrest. But in that amount of time, you can find somebody else.
You would assume. One would assume that you could find somebody else. But, I mean, it was the 50s. Like, you had to be married and have at least 3 kids by the time you were 19. So
that's true. And on the first date in the 50s, you French kiss and I can grab your titty, you're going to find a guy, honey. You're going to be okay.
You're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
We then cut immediately to Allison singing outside the jail while everyone is there as well. And they're chanting and singing to set Crybaby free. And Crybaby is then called to the visitation room. Allison dances for him, and he breaks the glass as they sing to each other. And the judge comes in because he wants to bang Allison's grandmother. And he comes in to release Crybaby. So
this was my favorite part of the movie, and it wasn't because of the music, although I thought this was probably the best song in the movie.
This was probably the best. I'll agree with that one.
Yeah, and overall performance, but I was fixated on Miss Williams this entire performance, and it did not disappoint. She was amazing. Like, Ricki Lake, Tracy Lords, Amy Locane.
Yeah.
They're all doing their thing.
Yeah.
And they do it very well. But her subverting those expectations of what she's going to do and just... Dude, I was fucking losing it. I loved it.
Yes. And this is where, like, at the theme park and here, and then basically from the theme park throughout the rest of this, like, she only has one spot at, the pearl clutching spot at the very beginning. And then immediately after, her arc really goes completely the opposite way. But now she's all the way over. She was like, yeah, I see why you want to nail him too. Like, first of all, that's Johnny Depp with some greaser style hair. Like, I want to bang that dude too. And she's like, you know who else I want to bang? This judge over here, because he's the oldest, horniest guy ever.
Oh, you could tell when he's handing down sentences. He's a fucking guy of any guy I've ever met that needs to unload some poison. Like, dude, you got to clear those cobwebs out. You are way too angry.
For sure. It then cuts to Crybaby's formal release outside the prison. The Drapes are there with Mrs. Williams. The Squares are there with Lenora and Baldwin, and they show up to boo. And Baldwin reveals that his grandfather was a prison guard and the one that flipped the switch and electrocuted Crybaby's parents.
Fucking psycho. What are you doing?
And we just laugh.
He laughs like every 80s movie bully after they just did something. Like that's that laugh. Oh. It's like the Dennis Reynolds laugh on the ski slope.
I assumed that's how Mitch McConnell laughs every time he took a black single mother off welfare.
Oh my God. He hasn't laughed like that in a long... If he were to laugh like that now, he would just stroke the fuck out.
Well, fingers crossed.
Crybaby here challenges Baldwin to a game of chicken, but with a twist, with him and Baldwin on the top of the car. Baldwin agrees. And then they start the little game of chicken, and then Baldwin's driver, Corey, chickens out, and Crybaby wins.
Ooh! Technically, I didn't chicken out. The character did, because it was written that way. I would never chicken out.
Just tell everybody that. That's fine.
Tell myself that.
Okay. I've been telling myself that ever since this movie.
Since 1990, God damn it.
Yes, and then everyone celebrates here, and they shed a single tear, except for Crybaby, who is able to cry from both eyes now.
Our little boy's all grown up.
He is all grown up.
I like this movie. It is not my favorite, and I'll tell you why right now. This is what happens when weird, creative people like John Waters get a big budget from a studio and have to accept studio notes.
Agreed.
Because I feel like this could have been weirder. I feel like we were missing our drag queens that are constant in John Waters movies.
Yeah.
I feel like we were missing so much more weirdness that we just had to settle for Hatchet Face. Like, oh, she's funny.
she got a fucked up face. Yeah.
Her face is crazy. Isn't it silly? Okay, sure. I just think there was a lot of opportunities that probably a studio back then really wasn't willing to let John Waters be John Waters with. And that for me was the only disappointing part of this movie.
I'll agree with that. But I'll say this, like, as far as a movie goes, like, and we've watched a million of these, you know, I know, and you kind of realize after you've done as many reviews as we've done, like, what all goes into making a movie. I know it's incredibly difficult. So when I see a movie that I can recognize that it's good, but I can also recognize that it's not for me. Like, this movie was a good movie. I can see why people like it. And the people that do like it don't just like it. They love it. And so I get all that. And I understand. And I could say, yeah, it's a good movie. Not for me. It was a little too, and maybe because of the whole studio thing. Yeah. Because maybe if it was even more weird, like, I don't know if it wasn't for me because of the musical of it all, or if it was just not weird enough. Like, it rode that line between, like, being weird and campy, but also, like, it was almost in a normal world too. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't just go all the way out there.
Yeah. And for a John Waters film, like, weirdness wise, which I mean is a compliment, by the way, it was like 5 yards off of the edge. They weren't even, like, on the edge of weird. They just were like, nah, we're good. We can see from here. We're good. It's like me looking over the side of a cliff. I'm good.
There's a bunch of guys in suits like, yes, this is fine. It's a little too weird, though. I'd like to trim this up a little bit.
Yes. Can we add a scene where you grab Amy Locane's breast, please?
Hell yes.
The performances, everybody did a great job.
Absolutely.
As far as I'm concerned, I loved the kids in this movie. I thought the kids damn near stole the movie.
Yes.
And that's me saying that. So they really did a good job. But no, everybody in this played their parts well. I get what they were going for. I get they were taking a piss on The Outsiders and on Grease and those kinds of movies. But again, it just felt like there was maybe a little too much studio interference for it to be a true John Waters film. And that for me was a little bit lacking.
That makes sense. That makes more sense to me than anything else because, yeah, again, like I said, I get why the movie's good. I know that the movie's good, just not for me. Not for me. And maybe if it was weirder than if they allowed this, and if they allowed Waters a wide berth on this one, maybe I would have liked it more. It would have appealed to me a little bit more. But again, at the end of the day, it's a good movie. It's a good musical. If you're into that kind of like campy musical thing, this is great.
You were right.
That's all I got, though. Do you have anything else? I'll say this before we cut out. I did enjoy. It was a fun watch, even though it was, because listen, we watch a lot of bad movies. So for it to be a good movie, some music in it, yada, yada, it was a fun watch. But yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, we don't need you to throw us a bone, you entitled fucking square.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's what I do.
Thanks to the...
You got anything else there? Right
Not
guy?
now. Not now. Bye.
For Corey, I'm Armando. This is Kiss the Reviews. And this was 1990's Crybaby.